Back at home, feeling misunderstood in between these ears.
What's up, Benchwarmers? And we're back with a center of attention. Another special center of attention because not only are Nico and I here, but we have a new unofficial mascot who I just adopted, Mr. Boomer. You guys will start seeing him a little bit more. If you follow us, you already saw the video of him exploring the backyard on our Twitter page. But we got tons of stuff coming up for you. Rev, Koka, The Problem, is going to be joining us on Wednesday for another UFC episode because we got Poirier versus McGregor 2 this weekend.
Big fight.
We won't be mentioning it this week on the regular episode, but be sure to tune in Friday on our feed, and then it'll get replayed on the network as well after. But it's going to be available on our feed at 10 a.m. So be sure to check that out. Rev loves talking MMA. We'll probably talk more than just this upcoming weekend. We could talk about Cater versus Holloway and everything like that, but we got some big things coming during Super Bowl week, and I'm not going to give too much away. I'm going to guard our little secrets here.
Yeah, we had some huge problems and some huge things. I mean, some a lot of we may hear the champion song again.
Yeah, we might have another champ coming on.
I don't know. Maybe a winner. I don't know, Jim. Maybe something special. You're gonna have to check it out. Super Bowl week.
Former world champion. Maybe.
Maybe. Wink, wink.
He guards a lot, but we got a lot of stuff to get into for this episode. Let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Man, do we have a special episode for you. We are back to our normal scheduled episodes. We had our Jonah Mitchell episode, which was a lot of fun. We have a lot of great things going forward. Like we teased in our center attention, man, we're going to have to guard ourselves a little bit, man.
Got to keep it close to
Keep it close. Yeah, you have to look out. A lot of great, cool things coming for Super Bowl week, so you're going to have to check that out. But it's good to be back, Jimmy. We have a new little friend with us. We have Boomer with us now.
Yeah, Mr. Boomer.
Named after the second best quarterback in Bengals history behind Joe Burrow. Boomer Esiason.
We'll see what Joe's able to do. Boomer's the last quarterback to win a playoff game for the Bengals, so that's why he got the nod over Burrow. But yeah, I mean, Jonah's episode, I feel like it was good because obviously it's the health and fitness side, but he also he talked a lot about some of the personal growth that he's been doing. And he does want to help out anybody who's willing, so if you listen to that episode, go follow him on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, and then tag us in your story and let us know that you were listening to that episode, and that's how you found him, because he'll give you a free consultation and basically lay out a plan for 30 days as to whether or not you want to keep working with him. But I feel great so far doing everything that he's been doing with the Athlete for Life Challenge, and I think that's going to be one of our bigger partnerships as we continue.
Oh, 100%. Like we said on his episode, we're going to get you in basketball shape, Jimmy. That's all I want. That's all I want to do is get you in basketball shape to run up and down the floor with me.
See, I got the knees of a lineman and a catcher. So basketball doesn't really bother
may not cut it.
No, I might just be shooting from the floor. I won't even jump when I shoot.
That's fair. But, I mean, we are on episode 24. Yep. I finally broke out the 824 jersey. It says 8 in the front, 24 on the back. I won't turn around because I have a lot of hooked up wires and everything. Yeah. But I brought out the Kobe jersey. We are at 24 episodes. Regular episodes. We have extras, obviously. We're around almost 30 total, but this is the regular scheduled thing at 24 episodes. Yep. We had a lot of fun things to talk about. A lot of fun things.
No, it was a crazy weekend in sports, and you went on the reserves for an emergency podcast because we had huge news break on Thursday afternoon. So Wednesday afternoon.
We had one of the craziest NBA trades we've seen in a long time happen. We'll get into full details about that because that was insane.
We won't just glance over that. We also have the playoffs that happened, and they were 4 very entertaining games. There wasn't really a blowout in any of them. The Avs didn't show up, but then they showed up.
Oh yeah, they decided we're gonna take the first day off and come back fire in the second.
Yeah, the Blues are still spinning, trying to figure out what the hell happened. It was like the scene in Rush Hour where Chris Tucker gets kicked in the face. Like, which one of y'all kicked me? 11 of them kicked you. That's what happened. And then obviously we had NBA still going on, and today was as we're recording this on Monday. Today was the last day that college players had to declare for the NFL draft. So we'll talk about some of the big names that declared so far and kind of give our initial thoughts on what their potential will be early on in the league. Because obviously we're not psychics. We don't have a crystal ball, and we still have to go through the combine, pro days.
There's a lot of things that happen. I heard the combine also. They might not do the full combine. They'll do it by university. So that's going to be interesting. It won't be no longer the NFL special. Hopefully they'll come back next year. Hopefully Rich Eisen will still get to run his 40. But
he's definitely running the 40 because he raises millions of dollars.
That's true.
Charities.
So they'll have to figure out a new way to do all that. Because like you said, it's a different world we're living in.
Different time. Yeah, it's still. I mean, it's getting. You can tell that it's kind of getting better, but it's still, totally different. No fans at any of the NHL games, even because the Stars had an outbreak. In camp, so then all the Florida teams have pulled back, and it's like, yeah, you know what? No fans. That's cool.
I mean, the Stars have as many 5-on-5 goals as the Bruins do, though. So I mean, they're doing pretty well, and they haven't played a game yet. So
yeah, I mean, for that Bruins thing, I'm so happy that they aren't playing they're playing that well. Hey, Jen, I'm happy that the Bruins are sucking so far this year. But yeah, let's start off by talking about some of the NCAA players that have declared for the draft so far. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence pretty much declared right after the semifinal was over. Makes sense. He's a graduate of Clemson already, even though he had another season. Justin Fields declared today. Another Browning, I'm not sure of his first name, but he was their big defensive star besides, and I can't think of the cornerback's name that they had. That tried to go up against Devontae Smith. But
Wade. His last name's Wade. Yeah,
Wade.
I don't remember
I think
first
Chris
name.
Wade.
Yeah, Chris Wade.
Chris Wade is staying, I believe. So is Olave. But Fields came out, declared. Browning came out and declared for Ohio State. Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Trey Sermon all declared for the NFL draft today. So let's go through just the top main five. Lawrence, Fields, Harris, Smith, and Sermon. What are we expecting for their potential at the next level?
I think it's all about fit. It's 100% about fit. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it may not be obvious completely because we could be completely wrong on draft day, but it's obvious he's going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. And the Jets have a lot of interesting options.
Mm-hmm.
They could keep Darnold, could move on to Fields, build right away because bringing Robert Saleh is a different. You have a different atmosphere in New York already.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to rebuild, bringing a quarterback with them? That's an interesting thing. Justin Fields and Zach Wilson are the two options there. But it's crazy. These top five, besides Trevor Lawrence, top four we're all in the same game. And I believe they're all at the top of their position. Yeah. I think Devontae Smith, arguably with Jamar Chase, are the best receivers coming out of this year. Jamar Chase, you can argue about a lot.
Jamar Chase not playing this year throws a whole nother monkey wrench into what the draft is going to be like because he did opt out.
He could be something in the NFL. But I think Devontae Smith will be the first wide receiver taken. I think Najee Harris should be, or actually I take that back. I think maybe Trey Sermon will be the first running back taken, and then Najee Harris. But I don't expect them early first. I think they'll be late first. It's not one of those things where it's a standout running back that you have to pick in the first top 10.
It's not a Saquon Barkley
or Christian McCaffrey or one of those lines. That they will get a quality play time for a team. Maybe the Broncos are a team if they move on from Philip Lindsay. I'm hoping not, but that's something. Maybe they're in the running for one of those running backs. But it's all about fit 100%. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence pairing with Urban Meyer. It's going to be interesting. Like we said, we don't know what they're going to do in number one. There was rumor maybe it was Justin Fields because of the Ohio State tie, but.
If you listen to the J-Dash show, that rumor or that reasoning for that rumor is ridiculous because Urban was not around.
He wasn't around, but he definitely was one of the reasons why he came over to Ohio State. But his draft stock rise high, very, very high. I think he's the number 2 quarterback taken. I think he jumped over Zach Wilson after that game against Clemson. Mm-hmm. He just ran into a buzzsaw in Alabama, and that's just an outlier.
Playing hurt too.
Exactly. So playing with the broken ribs, that's another thing you got to think about. If you're going to take a chance on Justin Fields, he's probably not going to start next year. Go towards the route of the Falcons where they have a high draft pick, but maybe they draft Justin Fields and keep him under Matt Ryan for a year.
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting positions. I think it's very obvious who number 1 is. Number 2 could go a lot of different ways, and I think number 3 is obvious. I think Miami is definitely going to go with Devontae Smith because we saw what Devontae Smith and Tua look like together. And that's something you can't pass up on if you're the Dolphins. You got gifted that number 3 pick by a Texans team who is still scrambling with their quarterback to go elsewhere. So we'll have more about that later, trust me. There's some fun odds on that. But Dolphins should go with Devontae Smith to repair him together. After that, you just got to hope Atlanta doesn't pick a lineman. And that Penei Sewell drops to 5.
I think there's a couple teams that I'm nervous for. So the draft order is the Jaguars, the Jets, Miami at 3, Atlanta at 4, and then Cincinnati at 5. Atlanta could be one that takes Penny Sewell from Oregon. I could also see maybe the Jets, or I could see the Jets trading back with a team who wants to get Penny Sewell.
Yeah.
Because right now, it was a slam dunk for the Jets if they had the number 1 overall pick. They were going to get Trevor Lawrence because then it would be a full rebuild, and it made total sense. Now, like you said, does Justin Fields really fit in what Robert Saleh wants to do? Does he want to take on babysitting a rookie quarterback as well as another thing? So I agree with those points, but I do think with them not necessarily having a huge a set plan, there's a couple teams that I'm kind of nervous about trading up and then trying to.
I think when it comes to the Jets position, I think there's a team that's going to trade up for Justin Fields. I don't know necessarily about trading up for Penei Sewell. I think the number 4 pick is more likely to be traded up for Penei Sewell because I think that everyone knows the Bengals have their eyes on him.
Yeah.
If someone wants him that badly, then they jump to 4. Jumping to 2 for Penei Sewell doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I think there's a better shot he's at 4 there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, left tackles. Yeah, I think that he's going to be a left tackle. Might be a right tackle, but tackles in general. It's not the same conversation we were having when Quentin Nelson was coming out. You can't, where people thought, you can't take a guard in the top 5. You should, because Quentin Nelson's I think he's a 3-time All-Pro now.
He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best O-line we've seen in a very long time.
Very,
I love watching him play football. It's a lot of fun watching him play.
Him and Jensen have 2 of the biggest just FU attitudes.
Yeah, CSU Pueblo football alum. I know you hate that. That school, but
I was never there. I never had to play against him when he was there, thankfully, because I wouldn't have had to play against him anyways. But he would have made me look bad on the opposite side.
He's an animal. He's an animal.
He's a total animal. Atlanta really scares me because who knows what they're gonna do. Arthur Smith being the coach there now. Maybe he doesn't go offensive line though, because Arthur Smith is an offensive coordinator. We saw what he did with the Falcons or the Titans. Yep. Yeah. So maybe he wants a big time running back. Maybe he goes after Najee and Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon had 500 yards rushing in his last 2 games. Yes, he did get hurt in the national championship, so we'll see what happens there. But Najee Harris, he proved in that game that he can settle down a quarterback who's inexperienced in the moment. Now he's going to be the rookie at that point, but Alabama running backs come into the league pretty seasoned, pretty veteran savvy, even though they are young. So I hate that Atlanta somehow got the jump on us. It's because of the tie. That's what it is. So Doug Peterson ended up fucking me again. He fucked me as an NFL fan, and now he's fucking me as a Bengals fan.
Yeah, for the Falcons though, I think if they were interested in Najee or Trey Sermon, they'd definitely trade.
Yeah.
And then that whole case goes where does the Falcons keep the 4th pick and maybe trade back into the 1st round at the end to try to get one of those 2? Because we could see that happen. Because teams that are looking at number 4, I think the only way you trade up to number 4 is if you're dead or vastly interested in Justin Fields or Penei Sewell. I think Devontae Smith's already a lock to Miami. I think Trevor Lawrence is already a lock to Jacksonville. Besides that, I think if you're interested in Sewell or interested in Justin Fields, that's where the trade up 4 is. If Atlanta is not interested in either of those guys, then you trade back maybe in the back end of the top 10. Maybe a team like the Broncos. I don't want it to happen, but maybe they jump up to 4 and get Justin Fields if he's there, or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of options there. It's just going to be interesting how it all plays out. Because, in all honesty, it could just get chaotic from the start. And Justin Fields could go number 1. And then we could see absolute insanity.
Oh, we'll definitely be making mock drafts. And that was fun for me when I was on the radio because and the first one that we did was the year Baker went number 1 overall. No, I didn't have Baker going number 1 overall. I could see maybe the Broncos trading up a little bit to maybe get... I think they... Honestly, if I was a Bronco fan, and I follow them decently, I know what's going on with them, they should go after Patrick Surtain.
Oh, 100%.
Cornerback is one of the worst positions on that team, but then you got to worry about Detroit, Carolina, even Philadelphia. Philadelphia could take a really good corner like that. And a cornerback we've seen, like the Browns, they traded up, or they had 2 picks in the 1st round and ended up taking a cornerback with their first one, Denzel Ward. He's been great for them so far. But I really think as a Bronco fan, you got to hope that they do everything they can to get Patrick Surtain.
the quarterback position going into this year, everyone thought, oh, we're set for life. Because we drafted O.J. Moody, who had a very good year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, O.J. Moody had a great year. Callahan just was hurt all the time. And then Bouye had the steroid test, which has made things worse. And then
Interesting that he kept getting hurt while he was on steroids.
Exactly. So it just kept getting worse and worse at the position. It's good to have depth. That defense, I think, with Surtain there, you could put Surtain across from Bouye, and then have that be your 1-2 punch, and have OJ Boudia and have Bryce Callahan be the slot corners, which I think is very, very good secondary. Pair that with Kareem Jackson in the back half and Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
That's a very fair. That's a playoff type secondary in my opinion. It's a very young secondary, but it has a lot of great potential.
No, it does. And the Broncos, they still have a lot of bone. They still have the structure of that no-fly zone defense. It really is coming down to the fact that you don't have 3 really, really good cornerbacks like you did that year, because you had Chris Harris in the slot, Aqib Talib, and I can't remember who the other.
Bradley Roby. Bradley Roby was a halftime slot.
Yeah, he would switch with Chris
Harris.
Harris. So I think that they want to build up that secondary again, because even though,
especially in this division too.
Yeah.
Especially this division.
Going up against Mahomes, and then all the other teams in the division have decent secondaries when they're healthy. Derwin James in Los Angeles, he's been hurt a lot, but when he's playing well, he plays very well. And then I know Abram in Oakland is pretty good. The safety, obviously in Kansas City, they have the Honey Badger and Dirty Dan Sorensen, and now Dirty Dan Sorensen stands for actually being a dirty player. Because we'll talk about that.
I mean, I knew that from beforehand. Going back to that snow game I went to in week 10, maybe? I don't remember what week it was, but he did have the dirty hit on, I forgot who it was.
I think he knocked out Philip Lindsay.
No, he knocked out Philip Lindsay in the second game in Kansas City. Because I do remember that in Kansas City, because Philip Lindsay basically almost willed us to that game. Actually, I take that back. That was against the Chargers. It might have been the first one. Yeah. I'm totally mixing up my games. I just want to forget the Broncos season in general.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you had it was 5-11, I believe,
And the amount of injuries and the amount of bad things that just went our way. Ugh.
But I mean, that's good for you.
We have the talent. I'm not worried. I just want us to get a full roster. I want Jarrell Casey back. I want a full healthy Cortland Sutton. I want Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay together. Yeah. I want Judy Hamler in their second year to take leaps.
You need an offensive lineman.
Not left tackle anymore. Not left tackle, but right tackle. Right tackle.
Because Dotson is. I can feel him age as I watch the game.
I mean, it just gets worse and worse. And then Juwan James is supposed to be playing next year. I
wouldn't want him to play if I was a Bronco fan. He's robbed Denver of a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems. And Von Miller has off the field problems too. Don't forget about that. We won't get into that.
We didn't actually talk about that because it was one of the weeks that we were not. We don't have to talk about it, but I'm just saying we completely skipped over it because it was one of our pre-recorded.
Yeah, we'll talk about that once the things come out, because like we said, they referred this back to Chris Anderson's case when Chris was actually the victim. Is wait till it all comes out, wait till everything figures out, because right now it doesn't look good, but
no, I
want all the details and I want everything figured out before we start making judgments.
I really hope that it's not as bad as what it looks like right now. And if you don't know what we're talking about,
just go search it up. Just
search Von Miller's name in Twitter. It'll probably still all be there. It's kind of weirdly enough, it kind of came in and blew over. Mm-hmm. There's other things going on with the team around that time. I think Melvin Gordon got a DUI a week after or something like that.
I mean, it's just one thing after the other.
Yeah, no, I don't envy. I mean, I went 4-11-1 and had a better season than I was expecting. I don't envy what you had to do. So the other, I guess we talked about most of them. Do you think Devontae Smith? Do you think that he'll be ready for the pros? Because he is very skinny, and we saw him get hurt in the national championship game.
I'm not worried about. I mean, it was a freak thumb injury. It's not like he got his ACL ripped apart.
No,
it was a freak thumb injury. He would have went back out there if they weren't kicking the shit out of him already. So I'm not worried about that. If you're the Dolphins, you have to go there. You have to go.
No, I think that I think that you have to go there, but I do think that there could be some development, because what rookie receivers learn in the NFL is these NFL cornerbacks will jam you and almost break your sternum. So if you're not big enough to kind of deal with that, get off the line. If they can press you on the line of scrimmage, you're it doesn't even matter that you're on the field. He's going to be in the slot a lot, so I don't think that he's going to be seeing
I think it'll be a lot
coverage.
easier with Devontae Parker too for the Dolphins. He'll be a more proven guy, and then maybe they add another free agent signing.
They need to
make
add
life easier.
They need to take as many offensive weapons as they can because their offense was basically stitched together with glue, and it was pretty amazing what they were able to do. They were
Almost
a
made
game
playoffs,
out of the playoffs. If they would have been able to win against Buffalo in Week 17 and Buffalo, knowing what we know now that happened with Pittsburgh, Buffalo didn't need to play everybody, but they did because they wanted the second seed, and it's worked out for them. But that's my one thing about maybe Devontae Smith needing to gain a little bit of weight. Don't lose any of your speed because that's obviously your biggest asset. But I do think that there has to be a little bit of development that goes into him. I don't see him coming in and being an impact guy.
Yeah, it's those things with rookie wide receivers. You expect them to put up numbers necessarily, but not be as effective as they should be their rookie year. Justin Jefferson next year could be a top 2 receiver.
Yeah.
But he's not there yet. He's a top 10 receiver based upon numbers, and same with Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, and then also Chase Claypool. They had great first years. They just weren't as impactful in winning games, and that's where you see that second year.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you on that. I think it'll be a 1 or 2 year process for Devontae Smith, but they're already expecting that with Tua. You nearly made the playoffs. You have the right defense. You just need to get the offense going, and you're
you
a
have
playoff
the right
team.
coach too. Brian Flores is one of my favorite coaches in the league. Let's go ahead and move on. We'll talk about some of the divisional round games, and let's start with the one we called for Colorcast: the Rams and the Los Angeles Rams, and the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field. 14-point game, but it was a weird score because there was a bad snap on an extra point, and then they tried to get a 2-point conversion and never got back.
With a little scoregami there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little scoregami.
When I'm calling the game and I have to go, that's 14 points, right? Yeah, carry the 2.
Carry 2, quick math.
Yes, it is 14 points. But that was, Green Bay looks like they're on a mission.
Aaron Rodgers is having fun.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's a problem for everyone else. Yeah. He is enjoying life. He is having fun playing football. I haven't seen this type of Aaron Rodgers since the Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him have this much fun with his receivers, his running backs. We saw one series where he didn't even throw a ball.
Nope.
They went 85 yards down the field off of runs.
Yeah, opening drive of the second half. He didn't throw a single pass. He only threw 36 times in total. And he's a generational talent at quarterback. Only had to throw for 296 yards. And
only 296 yards.
Most of those were garbage time yards too, and that last bomb that he threw to Lazard. But they look like they're on a mission. Their only downfall, possibly, is going to be their defense. That's the only thing that I'm nervous about. But
I will give them credit. Their pass rush was that Terry Smith did step up.
Yeah.
So that gives me a little bit of, not weary, a little bit of confidence in this team going into the next round against Tampa Bay, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But going into that next game, I like Zadarius Smith a lot. And Jair Alexander shut Robert Woods down for the most part. He only had a few touches here and there.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about this Green Bay defense. I'm just worried about necessarily the stigma of playing Tom Brady in the playoffs. That's the only thing.
This is our first Aaron Rodgers-Tom Brady matchup in the playoffs.
Oof, man, fire me up. I'd love to see that.
I'm excited for that because of everything else that happened last night. But I think another thing that stood out for the Packers was the 3 running backs playing as well as they did. Aaron Jones, obviously the feature back, but then you have A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams who are both just running like crazy. They had gaping holes because that offensive line, even though they're missing an all-pro left tackle in Bakhtiari, Lindsley was able to get things going. I love how Billy Turner run blocks. I've always liked how Billy Turner run blocked, even when he was on the Broncos. And I turned on the Bengals game when they played the Broncos. The one play that I turned on was Philip Lindsay's toss that he took for 85 yards, and Billy Turner led the way. And I agree. I think Zadarius Smith will get those guys ready to go.
It's going to be Zadarius Smith versus Tristan Wirfs, which I think Zadarius Smith might get the best of. We saw Wirfs did a really good job against Cameron Jordan, but I think the Packers.
That was also after 2 times playing him before.
That's true. So I think it's going to be a little bit different scheme that the Packers defense are ready to roll, because this team, like I said, Aaron Rodgers having fun is a problem for everybody else. Because we, like, the quote-unquote Jay Cutler of the Green Bay Packers is having fun. He's leading his team. He's putting the crown on
He's celebrating
head.
touchdowns again.
He's having fun.
Yeah.
That's the quarterback I've been wanting to see for so long.
That's
Aaron
true.
Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks. It doesn't matter who they're playing. You got to turn it on because this is must-watch TV.
Yeah, but then when we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the pick'em. Tampa Bay did kick the shit out of Green Bay earlier this year in Green Bay, but like we said, we'll talk a little bit.
Hard to sweep teams.
It is. It is very hard to sweep a team. Now let's go over to a game that made me very happy. We didn't call this.
Both of us very happy.
Yeah, I know. It made you happy. I was this close to
get what you fucking deserve.
I was this close to starting to defend Comp, and Comp won Twitter this weekend. Will Compton from Bussin' with the Boys. Had the crying Jordan meme face.
Loved
he
it.
said he was going to do it when they lost. They ended up losing this round. And then he had... It's really funny that all the haters are like, wow, if you focus this much on playing instead of your Twitter game, maybe you'll actually be a starter. And no, he's an 8th-year journeyman linebacker. He doesn't need to focus on the game because he has
a job now outside of football that he can have fun with.
He gets brought in because he can learn playbook really quickly and contribute if he needs to. Mm-hmm. He did great in his relief roles this year for the Titans. Against the Broncos, he had a great game, and then he had the huge strip fumble against who was that? Well, it was one of the last weeks of the season. But Baltimore loses. Lamar Jackson gets knocked out. Josh Allen doesn't look great. Stephon Diggs had another great game because he's Stephon Diggs, and we're starting to learn that he can just do that now. But the Buffalo defense, who we've been talking about all season, not being as good as they were, really stepped up.
Yeah, not saying as good as they were was compared to last year.
Yeah.
Last year they were just dominant.
Last year they were top 2 in the league.
Exactly. This year they had a slight drop off, but this past week we saw that defense we saw 2 years ago.
Yep.
And they stepped up big time. The Ravens were looking for answers at quarterback. No Trace McSorley, which he probably would have threw it on a dime, but he was unavailable. Yeah. No RG3 either. I don't really know why.
I think he
hurt
pulled a hamstring in the Pittsburgh game when he had to play, when he started, when Lamar had COVID. But
either way, Ravens, welcome to starting your 4th-string quarterback, just like I know very well.
Well, at least Tyler Huntley is an actual quarterback. He played at Utah. Yeah. He was a quarterback last year, not his freshman year at Wake Forest like Kendall Hinton. But I think what we really got exposed to this week for the Buffalo Bills defense, their speed. Yeah. Because they had the speed to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket, and they were getting after him the whole night. Obviously had the sack that knocked him out. And then the huge pick six. You needed that play so badly at that point in the game because neither team could score. Justin Tucker forgot how to make a field goal. The wind was
very bad.
Very bad.
Very bad.
But he's normally the guy that you send out there in a windstorm and be like, no, he's got this. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, considering he dunked 2 of them,
yeah,
that the wind played a factor. Don't get me wrong, because we were seeing balls thrown by Josh Allen deep that were literally curving right, so far right, that they were literally they were right on line, and then as he threw it, it literally went straight right out of bounds. Mm-hmm. It was just a really weird atmosphere, but that's Buffalo in the playoffs for you. Yeah, that's Buffalo in the playoffs.
That's why they wanted to play. They wanted the home field advantage. That's why they played everybody in Week 17 because they knew if you have to go to Western New York at this time of year, unless you're Jim Kelly, nobody's going to be able to throw. Mm-hmm. And Lamar Jackson tried, failed, pretty miserably.
Could have expected that. Though.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the divisional round of the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's not getting past the divisional round of the playoffs until you prove it otherwise. That's your stigma. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you won a playoff game and then you acted like a dick afterwards. And we have people on the Unhinged Sports Network. I'm not calling you out. Like I don't disagree with some of the points that you're making, but I have a very hard time. If you played football before or played a competitive sport, how you defend what they did last weekend. Yeah, the Titans shouldn't have broke it down on the midfield logo. But that's all they did. It's not like they went over and cleated it unprovoked. Unprovoked is what I'm talking about. John Harbaugh coming over and then getting in the face of a whole bunch of alpha male professional athletes, what do you expect? They're going to turn around and they're going to try and dig at your logo. So, okay, but I really don't know how you can just back up the Ravens at this point.
Either way, they're out of the playoffs. Not worried about. The one other thing I want to say about this game, though, was what happened after it. Bills Mafia showed themselves a little bit. Lamar Jackson has a charity known Backpacks for Kids, I believe, and they feed kids food during the school year on weekends or when they can't get to school because of COVID or whatever it may be. And Bills Mafia stepped up, and there's 300,000 donations and $8 each or something like that, and they had the most donations ever. So I'd highly recommend everyone going there, donating $8 to that foundation in honor of Bills Mafia. That was something really cool that they did for Lamar Jackson, because like we said, we give Lamar Jackson shit because he hasn't been able to win the playoffs, but him healthy is good for football.
Yeah.
And it was a really classic thing what Bills Mafia did. I'm just happy to see the Bills in the AFC Championship because I like new blood.
No, that's a good reason that they're in the playoffs, and Bills Mafia has always been that way. When the Bengals when the Bengals beat the Ravens to get the Bills into the playoffs for the first time since I can't even remember when, but they donated a ton of money to Andy Dalton's charity, so they're crazy.
They have to have fun, but they're classy.
I would really like to tailgate with them before the game. Maybe, I don't know. Zach, if we're able to go, you still got to jump through a flaming table in your George House jersey. But they are, I agree with you, they are one of the more classy fan bases in all of professional sports.
They like to have their fun, but they're classy.
Now let's move on to the other AFC divisional round, the Browns and Chiefs. This one, wow. I mean, 5-point game. Who expected the Browns and Chiefs to go to a 5-point game? And it wasn't just because Pat Mahomes.
No one expected the Browns to cover at all, and it was a 10.5 spread, and they had 5. Wow. I mean, given that Patrick Mahomes didn't play for the last quarter and a half, right, or something like those.
It wasn't too much of the game, but yeah, it was like maybe the last 18 minutes.
Yeah, whatever it may be, the Browns played well.
Yeah.
And the Browns have a bright future.
Yep. No,
it's weird saying that, but the Browns have a bright future. Maybe it's because they went back to the old school Browns jerseys, not the newer ones that they did. Now they have the old school Browns jerseys, but the Browns going to be good for a few years now. This game makes me worry a little bit about the Chiefs' defense. Makes me worry a little bit, but not a whole lot against the Bills.
No, and it's a totally different offensive scheme that you're going up against because the Browns. They know their identity. Baker had a hell of a season, especially the last half. He finally threw his first interception since I believe week 14 yesterday. But he played really well. They are a punch you in the face, pound the ball down your throat, and then we're going to go over the top with play action. And Kevin Stefanski is one of the better offensive-minded head coaches. I believe he should win Coach of the Year for what he's been able to do.
100%.
It's probably,
maybe him and LaFleur. LaFleur has the other argument to be made.
I also like Sean McDermott as well.
Yeah, Sean McDermott too. There's a lot of good options.
Yeah. I mean, the coaching, for as bad as Adam Gase is at head coaching, there's even more people that are pretty good at it.
Exactly.
But
it's going to be a completely different scheme though, because like we said, Buffalo only ran the ball one time in the first half, and it was a Josh Allen scramble.
Oh, they have no running game.
So it's going to be completely different what the Chiefs have to do.
The main thing that we have to talk about with this game is the Dan Sorensen hit going into halftime on Rashard Higgins, not T. Higgins. T. Higgins is my guy, not T. Higgins. That should have been targeting. That should have been targeting. I'm going to say it as many times as I need to because that should have been targeting. You cannot dip your head and hit another player in the side of their helmet. I don't know if he went out, but it would make sense to me that Rashard Higgins went out for a second. That's why he dropped the ball because he didn't get hit in the arm, really. It was mainly just head-to-head contact. He probably went out, dropped the ball, and Njoku did what he could to try and keep the ball in the end zone. But then we can also talk about why is it. I get it when you kick it off or you punt it into the end zone for the touchback. When it goes through the end zone on a fumble, unless it's a team like batting it out of the back of the end zone, I don't necessarily agree that then the other team just gets the ball back at their own 20-yard line.
I'm in the majority that thinks that. So the way I see it is, I think a great example of this was the Will Parks play from a few years back against the Steelers. I think it was the second to last game of the year last year. Was Will Parks made a play on, I believe it was either Juju or someone, it might have been Deontay Johnson, in the end zone, and he forced a fumble, and the ball went out. I don't think that they should get the ball back. I'm one of those cases where you fumble the ball out of bounds, the ball does not move forward on forward progress. If you fumble it forward out of the end zone, because if you're in the end zone already, it should be a touchdown. If you fumble the ball forward out of the end zone, then that's a different story. I don't think you deserve the ball back. Because if you're in the case of they deserve the ball back, where do you give them the ball? The 1 yard line? Is that fair for a defensive play that just caused a fumble and the guy hit the ball all the way back? If anything, you should go back to where the play started.
I would say half the distance, maybe. Because you got it to that point.
Yeah, not the 1 yard line.
No, not the 1 yard line where he fumbled it, but also, I guess maybe it's just because of this play, the ball should have never been fumbled. That ball, I mean, the play should have been blown dead. They should have gone back and looked at the hit anyways. They need to really change the targeting rule in the NFL.
Oh, 100. The targeting rule in college too. The whole missing out games and everything that hurts the players as well.
At least add the review. Yeah, you don't necessarily have to kick guys out, but add the review.
The review is 100% a thing. We're in 2021. Yeah. How is there not a review already? There's a review on everything else, but you can't do a targeting call review? Why the hell not? Yeah, I mean, obviously no one wants to see the head-to-head contact replayed over and over again, but just don't show it and have the refs go take a thorough look because, like we said, these are actual human beings. Mm-hmm. It doesn't hurt taking 5 minutes to go check if this player should be ejected for the rest of the game or if it was a clean hit.
Well, I mean, and if that penalty happens, I think that it nullifies the play. It nullifies the play, obviously, but then the Browns still maintain possession. They get the ball moved up 15 yards like they should because that's what the rule states. I don't necessarily think that you have to kick Dan Sorensen out of the game, but there needs to be some sort of change made there.
Maybe the 2-strike system where
it could be.
Like I said that with college football. I think they should have that as well. 2 offenses because that safety, I forgot his name, from Alabama, his national championship game was ended after the second quarter. Mm-hmm. When he had that hit that they reviewed, but I think that you should get a 2-shot minimum. Almost.
Yeah, I mean we were on a call earlier today, and Zach brought up Zach Kyman of the Gridiron Gallery podcast. Check him out on Fridays on the Unhinged Sports Network. But he mentioned it could possibly move as to one of the personal fouls because if you get 2 personal fouls, then you're kicked out. Yeah. So if you get a targeting penalty, that's a personal foul. That's your first personal foul. Don't do it again, or don't do anything else stupid again, and then you won't get kicked out of the game.
They just got to do something different. Yeah. I agree completely with that. I think that's a great option to go with.
We also have to mention Patrick Mahomes did get knocked out. I do think that he's going to play. He's going to
heaven forbid he's dead. He's going to be playing on Sunday. The NFL will not allow him to not be playing.
We got a
little bit of action from Boomer there. I know we don't like Patrick Mahomes in this house either. Don't worry, buddy.
Yeah,
but
he's a Baker fan because of Boomer Sooner. But I think, do you think that maybe the Chiefs have a COVID outbreak so that they can extend the game a little bit so that Pat Mahomes can clear concussion protocol?
I don't know if they do that because there's been so many snitchy things this year already. Yeah. I think there's a good chance they could do that because the buffer 1 week of the Super Bowl, having the Pro Bowl in between all that, I think there is a chance for that. But
the NFL also has the facilities that they're going to use for the Super Bowl. They have it rented out for an extra 3 weeks in case they had an outbreak this late in the season. So I think that could be a possibility.
I don't think it'll be an outbreak. I think he won't practice all week, and I think he'll have to go through all the protocols, but I think by Thursday, Friday, he'll still be cleared.
But then that begs the question, do you want to concuss Patrick Mahomes playing?
If you're the Chiefs, yes, you do. I'll tell you right now, Chad Henne cannot beat the Bills.
No, Chad Henne can't beat the Bills, but a concussed Patrick Mahomes, could he beat the Bills? He could barely walk off the field yesterday. On Sunday, he didn't know where he was. He could barely get himself off the field.
I still say yes. Patrick Mahomes with 0 brain cells is still better than half the quarterbacks in this league.
That's true.
So I still don't doubt Patrick Mahomes for a doubt. And as a division rival, that hurts me saying this. Yeah. But without a doubt, Patrick Mahomes, like he's gonna play. Like I don't think the NFL. I think they might bend the rules. I don't think they'll have the COVID outbreak. I think the concussion rules will be bent a little bit to make sure he plays. But like I said, he doesn't have to practice a whole lot. No. He just has to go through warm-ups, do 7-on-7, take no hits. Mm-hmm. Just take Monday or take today off, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday as well. And then Friday, Saturday, have a walkthrough, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. He's going to be on the field. There's no way that Chad Henne is the starting quarterback for the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Like you said about the Bills, they had a great season. I think they're another step away. This was good for them because they got the playoff experience that they needed for that young core that they're building. Draft well, and then continue to develop guys. You might possibly be a destination in free agency now.
Oh, 100%. Receivers, running backs. If you're a free agent running back, why the hell would you not go to Buffalo? Buffalo, I mean, if you have a passing game as good as Josh Allen's and Stephon Diggs, why the hell not? You can make that offense even deadlier.
Yeah.
And that defense can only get better as well.
Yeah.
This Bills team has so much great talent for the next 6, 7 years, 8 years.
And all their guys that are stars for them are on their rookie contracts or are already
Which makes life a lot easier.
And they could use OBJ as trade bait. I know that he's one of the top receivers in the league, one of the most talented guys, but you cannot look at me and tell me that the Browns were not better with him off the field.
Yeah, you could. If we're talking about the Bills getting OBJ, I think that could be a possibility.
Maybe.
Yeah, because that could be a possibility. With the Browns, though, they could possibly move on for sure.
All right, let's move on to the last game of the weekend, and then we can take a break from football for a little bit because I know you want to talk some basketball
and hockey too. A lot of hockey stuff too.
So Buccaneers Saints, possibly the last time we see Drew Brees ever play.
Should be the last time.
It should be. I'm not going to rule anything out, but I do think Drew Brees does not strike me as a Brett Favre type where he's going to tease that he's retiring, and then come back. I do think that, especially after that injury that he sustained, you have 24 ribs in your body. He broke 11 of them on one hit. Yeah. One of them punctured his lung. And he came back, as much shit as I gave him for being washed and just not having the talent that he did earlier on in his career, and he aged like that. He was one of the most rapidly aged quarterbacks that I can remember. Because I say it a lot about, like, Brady's not near as good as he has been, but he's still good enough to win you games. Drew Brees was, a little bit past that. He went from last year being serviceable, maybe even a good quarterback in the NFC, to this year being one of the worst quarterbacks, especially in that conference. And it showed last night. Not going to put the whole thing on him because the Bucks definitely took everything that they saw from the regular season, put that into a game plan, and figured out how to just beat the Saints. That's all they wanted to do.
Yeah, like we said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially with Tom Brady quarterback. I thought that the Saints were going to come out firing, and they did. If it weren't for a great defensive play on Jared Cook, we could have seen this game go the completely other direction. Drew Brees, he's done so many great things for the game. Whether it be leading that New Orleans team.
He's the reason that they still have the Saints there.
Exactly. After Hurricane Katrina, that whole thing, him having a terrible start to his career in San Diego, and then him being shipped off to New Orleans for barely nothing, and him rejuvenating his career. He's top 5 in nearly every single QB statistical career record. So he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's just time, unfortunately. I think a great way to put it, we tweeted out, was the HBK Ric Flair match when it was Ric Flair's quote-unquote last match. It wasn't his last match. Quote-unquote last match.
We don't count TNA, so
yeah. So Ric Flair's quote-unquote last match in WWE, Shawn Michaels saying, "I'm sorry," knocking him out with the sweet chin music. That was basically Tom Brady. Because both those dudes are first ballot Hall of Famers. But Drew Brees, it was his time, and he's done so much for the sport, and so much for that city in New Orleans. New Orleans football is where it is because of Drew Brees. If you look at, people that, if you look at all those players that come out of Louisiana, especially LSU, Joe Burrow looking up to him. He wore 9 because of Drew Brees at one point. Tyrann Mathieu had the thing about Drew Brees rejuvenating the city after Hurricane Katrina. The list goes on and on. One of the stats, though, that really, really intrigued me a lot was that Tom Brady currently has more wins against NFC opponents in the playoffs than Drew Brees. Wow. He has 5 Super Bowl wins against NFC opponents, and he has
2 in the playoffs.
And Drew Brees only has, 5 or 6, and I think he might have 8 or something along those. I don't know the exact numbers. But
it makes sense because when they made it to the Super Bowl, they were the 1 seed, so they played 2 games to get there, and then they always lose somehow. They lose in spectacular fashion more than any other team that I can really remember.
Yeah. There was a few years Drew Brees should have got another Super Bowl. It's just crazy things happen, whether it be the miracle, Minneapolis miracle, or the Rams bad targeting call. So
and then we ended up having to sit through a season where coaches could challenge pass interference. So thank you for that, Sean Payton. Yeah. On the other side of that, going back to that WWE analogy, Shawn Michaels went on after that to have a few more great matches. That was right before he started doing his thing with The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Do you think that we still see, obviously Brady, I would say Brady still has one of the better chances to make the Super Bowl.
Years. We don't know what he's done.
Right.
Like it's the revolving thing of like this is a great comparison, but it's kind of not at the same time. The LeBron James thing. LeBron James was well past his quote
I'm
unquote prime.
36.
I'm 36, and that was a great meme by Mark Phillips. Shout out Mark Phillips. They have funny videos on Twitter. But LeBron is doing this. He'll be doing this until he's 43, 45. And he won't be in his prime, but he'll still be winning basketball games.
Yeah.
And that was Tom Brady. Tom Brady was winning Super Bowls in his late 30s. That's what LeBron's doing. And then at his late 40s, he won't be the star anymore like we're seeing with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Ronald Jones, that defense especially. He doesn't have to do it all anymore. Now he's help around him. We could see another 5 years from Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And he could be playing until he's 50.
Jesus.
I'm just glad he's not in the AFC anymore. I'm just glad he's not in the AFC.
Hopefully he doesn't come back. Hopefully it's not a welcome home and just
he'll retire a Patriot. I guarantee you that, but I don't think it'll be a 10-day contract or a 24-hour contract where it's a Legends deal or something.
If the opportunity were to arise, would you like him in Denver?
No, fuck no. He's 40-something.
Okay.
I'm past that point. If this would have happened, maybe if we were talking about 5 years ago, Tom Brady, I would have said, hell yeah, if there's any chance, you get him. But no, not now.
I'm going to rephrase this in the nicest way possible. You give them whatever the hell they want.
You give them whatever Deshaun Watson wants.
No.
You don't give anything. You give them the house for Deshaun Watson. You don't give them the house for Tom Brady at this point in his career.
No, Tom Brady's definitely leading on.
Because that's a 2-year rental.
Yeah.
And that's if you can win. So I'd say no to that.
No, it's probably not a good idea. It's just fun to think about. I sometimes picture different quarterbacks in different uniforms, and Tom Brady in a Broncos uniform seems about as weird as any. But he's definitely leaning on his cast of characters. And the weird thing is, Gronk is not affecting the game in the receiving. He's affecting the game in the way that he's pass protecting. I think that's why Tristan Wirfs was able to hold up a little bit better against Cam Jordan, because Bruce Arians is like, okay, my rookie cannot go against this grown-ass man at defensive end. So I'm going to leave Gronk in there. Gronk's going to go down as one of the best blocking tight ends, I think, of all time, along with one of the best receiving. That's why I think of tight ends, he's my number one. I think that he's going to go. He's my number one right now. Travis Kelce, he's probably a better receiver, a little bit more dynamic in that area, but he's not a blocker.
I think all time, I still may give the nod to Tony Gonzalez, just slightly. But Rob Gronkowski, he's definitely a top 3 tight end of all time. He's put up fantastic numbers. Right now, I would not pick him right now as number one. I still think it's Travis Kelce, George Kittle.
George Kittle would possibly go down as the number one of all time.
Yeah, because he's the best, I think, run blocking tight end we've ever seen.
Yeah, and he's no slouch in pass protection. He just doesn't like to go out for routes that much.
Exactly. So there's a few different cases there to be made. But Tampa, we're seeing Tom Brady with weapons. We didn't see it last year. Him having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the outside and Antonio Brown in the slot, that's a luxury. That's a luxury. If you would have told Tom Brady this is your weapon group in year 18? What year? I don't know.
I think year 18 was his last in New England.
So maybe year 19. Year 19 in the league, this is your passing core? I'd say, hell yeah, I'm going to be here for another 30 years. So, I mean, it's a thing where the Buccaneers are set up for the future, but they got to keep... they may run into a buzzsaw and Aaron Rodgers.
It could happen. I think of teams that are possibly going to be in the running for a backup quarterback in this year's draft, maybe at the late first round, early second, because Trey Lance out of North Dakota State is still going to be available this year. That could be something interesting. Or if Zach Wilson, because honestly, I don't see what the reasoning would be to draft Zach Wilson in the top 15. Yeah. I think that he's definitely a late first round, maybe early second round guy. I think they need to start looking and maybe start building for that next step that they can take. But at this point, they're set up pretty well for this year and next year, and then we'll see what happens after that. I think Bruce Arians also kind of getting to the end of his career. He's already retired once.
He just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he just won the Super Bowl as a head coach. I believe he's got a Super Bowl as an assistant.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead. We talked a ton of football. Let's move on to.
Let's take a quick. Due to technical difficulties, and my dumb ass doesn't know how to work the camera sometimes, we're going to have a small little ad. Except we don't have an ad. So we're going to plug the NFL Unhinged show on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. To noon. To 12. So it's a 2-hour show. How about that? 2-hour show. I'm going to have to wake my ass up that early at 8 a.m. But be sure to check me, Jimmy Al, the J-Dash guys high-low sports as well, man. All of us,
Gridiron
NFL
Gallery.
Gridiron Gallery, a little bit of everything. Maybe we'll have more guests on. Who knows? Be sure to check us out on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, if you want to see what a budgeted Sam Ponder looks like, you can. Actually, I don't know if we're doing the video, but you'll be able to hear. I'll be moderating, and we got tons of
You
opinions.
can picture
and-
Sam Ponder, but hear Jimmy's voice.
Yeah, that's exactly. Everybody makes. I sound exactly like Sam Ponder, but that's coming up on the Unhinged Network live Sundays from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern time.
So without further ado, since we don't have another ad, let's go back to the show.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, we say it every single week. We got some kinks to work out where you use the Fanatics and the Fubo link in our bios. We might be able to afford upgrading the camera so that we don't have to run a GoPro from our phone. But at this point, we're doing the best that we can, and we know that you guys appreciate it anyways. So we're going to continue moving on. We talked a ton about the NFL in the last week, the divisional round. Let's go ahead and let's talk about one of the greatest great weight loss journeys I've ever seen. James Harden, no longer going to be snooping in the strip club buffets. El Thick Boy is no longer going to be in the Houston strip clubs. He's moving up to Brooklyn. Going to be a little bit more locked down due to COVID restrictions, but he got traded for a huge amount. I mean, obviously,
four first round swaps.
Yeah.
So he got a huge haul.
No, and obviously he's a former MVP, but I thought that he was hurting his trade value with all the crap that he was doing out in Houston. Apparently, if you talk shit about your team, get caught at a strip club, supporting one of your friends, quote unquote, and just eating as much fried chicken and collard greens as you could find,
he tried everything to get out of there, obviously.
Yeah.
Going back, I literally, the day the trade happened, I said in the morning, I was like, Boogie Cousins came out and said he's been a cancer ever since training camp. That he obviously didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, James Harden's played his last game in Houston. And lo and behold, his last game in Houston was that Tuesday before.
Did you buy a Mega Millions ticket?
I should have.
I bought 2 Powerball, but that was
Oh man, I should have. It was a huge trade because it's very, very, not very often that you see a MVP within the last 3 years get traded.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you see him leave like LeBron did in free agency, or you see KD leave free agency. But getting traded, that's a completely different story. The last big all-star trade I can remember, I'm probably way off on this, was the Melo one. There's probably a few others that I can't think about that were top 5 players at the time that were traded.
Most of the time it's past their prime.
Exactly. It's either past their prime or the player is no longer a number 1 option. And Melo's the last person I can think of that was the number 1 option to be traded. Because Miami was built like that. San Antonio was built like that. Actually, I take that back. Maybe the Kawhi deal. I take that back. The Kawhi deal to Toronto, that was the other blockbuster, the last blockbuster. One outside of the James Harden one.
Because he was a finals MVP and was one of the main reasons why the Spurs were able to win those championships, and then all of a sudden Popovich.
But I mean, like we saw, he was thick boy in Houston, and now in Brooklyn.
Do you think he was wearing a fat suit or something?
He had to be at least. I mean, because it was literally night and day.
Yeah.
He literally got traded to Brooklyn in 24 hours. He's skinny, and I mean, I will say this about him: he obviously did not like his time in Houston. He had talent around him.
He came out and said that he appreciated most of his time in Houston. He didn't like the ending of his time in Houston.
He had talent around him. He had Dwight Howard when Houston traded for him way back when. He had Chris Paul. He had Russell Westbrook. He had talent around him. They could just never figure it out in Houston. But now in Brooklyn, he's the number 2 option. I'd say not number 1 option because KD's number 1 option. Number 2, I'd say, because Kyrie, we still don't know what's going on with him. But in Brooklyn, he looks happy.
Yeah.
And for mental health reasons and everything, he's obviously enjoying basketball a lot more, and that's scary. And Brooklyn is a scary team. They lost a lot of depth, but if they can have all 3 of those stars going, it's going to be tough to beat them.
Oh, this is a move that, and I'm taking a little bit from, I listened to your bonus podcast with the reserves. Go back and check that out on their feed, because if you want to talk, I can hold my own talking basketball. If you want to go basketball nerds, Go listen to Nico on the Reserves podcast and on 3 in the Key as well. But this is a move that they need to win now or next year. This is not a move set up so that they can win a ton of championships in the future. It's so that they can win a championship at this point. It's reminiscent of one of the other trades that they made where they've just got back from rebuilding after that.
It was
trade.
the KG Paul Pierce trade where they literally traded, I think it was near 4 or 5 first-round picks. Literally all the 2010s, they didn't have a draft pick. Now, Brooklyn doesn't have their own first-round pick until 2028.
Yeah.
So here we go again. That obviously deal didn't come to a NBA championship, but first round picks don't matter if you win a championship. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you're a playoff team, you're top 2 in the East, if you're in the Eastern Conference Finals every year, first round picks don't matter. It's not like it's football where there's talent everywhere.
Right.
Basketball, you have to find the needle in the haystack to have a end of the first or late second round pick to be an actual star.
Mm-hmm.
So for that matter, it doesn't really matter if they win. If they win is a problem. If they win. Because when you look at that KG Paul Pierce trade, they were way past their primes. They're both done. James Harden's still playing good basketball. Kevin Durant, off his Achilles, is playing some of the best basketball you've seen.
He's scary.
And
Still.
Kyrie, when he wants to play, Kyrie is one of the best point guards in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They are set up to win now. I like them in the preseason before they made this deal to make the NBA championship based upon Steve Nash, but Steve Nash has a lot to deal with now.
I was going to ask, do you think Steve Nash is going to be able to make these guys mesh? Because
he'll be able to make them mesh.
You got one basketball.
Yeah, I know you have one basketball, but I sent out a meme, a funny one. It was like the ball after 48 minutes of James Harden, Kyrie, literally deflated. Tom Brady would love that. Literally deflated ball because Charles Barkley said it best. KD went from the Splash Brothers to the Dribble Brothers.
Yeah.
So I do think James Harden, we saw him have a triple-double in his first night. So I will give him kudos there because he played very well. But the dude's having fun. He's in a better situation. He's with one of his longtime friends in KD.
Mm-hmm.
Things are looking up in Brooklyn. If you're Houston, this is the best you could have got by far, and you cannot be more happy.
No.
You got Oladipo in the deal from Indiana, who wasn't going to pay him the max, and now Houston could pay him the max, but Oladipo did come out and say that he doesn't know if he's going to be there long term, so at least he knows ahead of time. But it really doesn't matter. Houston just need a cap dump and rebuild fully. But now they could make the playoffs. Boogie and John Wall healthy, and Oladipo healthy, they could contend for an 8 seed. That's saying a lot, I know, especially in the West. If this is the East, I think they're a playoff team 100%. But in the West, it's going to be tougher, but they could be dangerous.
They still haven't really gotten their groove either because even after that trade, they're on a 2-game losing streak right now. They're still second to last in the Western Conference as the standings are right now. Obviously, a lot of season left to go. They're going to start to mesh and gel, so I can see that maybe turning themselves around. The only problem that I see is that Golden State's hanging around the 8th seed. Dallas is hanging around the 8th seed as well. The Nuggets hanging around the 8th seed right now.
I'm not too worried
right
about
now.
that. We'll be back. Michael Porter Jr. back Friday. Call it now. Nuggets will get back on track. And free Bradley Beal. Keep saying it every week. Free Bradley Beal. Come join Denver, please. We need you.
Yeah, it would piss off a lot of people on
I
Twitter.
pissed off a lot of people already with that tweet.
No, it's great because they don't. It's the same thing with Compton's thing. Like, the more interaction we get, it's the better for us. So I don't care if you retweet my shit and call me an idiot. You retweeted it, more people saw it. Over 50,000 people just saw that tweet.
Philly fans were so pissed off with me saying Jokic is the best center in the NBA. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's facts. Joel Embiid has never made it past the second round of playoffs. Is it still a process, Philadelphia? Because you've been in the process for the past 8 years. So when does the process end and realization come that you're never going to win a ring together as a group? Because you just lost out on Harden, too. Philly could have got Harden. And do you really think Ben Simmons is going to be the next coming of LeBron James? He's in year 3 now, almost year 4.
I shoot a better three-pointer than he does, too.
Exactly. Get a jump shot, Ben Simmons. Philadelphia, you're just blown out of proportions.
Before we move on from this, does this mean that LeBron has another Golden State that he has to worry about in the other conference? Is he going to have to... I mean, obviously the video's funny. I'm
36, yeah.
Kyrie, are you scared of me? You need James Harden? You already got KD. No, but does this mean anything for that narrative?
I don't think so. I think in years past, it was who was on the Western Conference for LeBron because he was in the East. East has always been shit.
Yeah.
There's 3 teams, and then there's 50 pounds of shit, and then there's everyone else. I mean, that's being generous too. When it comes to West, it's 1 through 8. They're all contenders.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of those teams could be any other team on any given night. It's just who can win in a 7-game series. It's not like it's football where it's one game stands. It's 7-game series, and LeBron still has a slight edge over that. When it comes to facing the Nets in the playoffs, LeBron should be a little worried because the Lakers are better in their front court, not the back court. The back court is a little depleted. KCP, Rondo isn't there anymore. Caruso's been starting some games. You lost Avery Bradley, who was a good defensive piece in the regular season last year. He wasn't there in the bubble. But you're relying on some younger guys in the backcourt. Lost Danny Green, yeah, but Danny Green, Lakers fans are glad he's gone.
Well, I mean,
so
obviously, but he gets the championship wherever he goes.
Exactly. So Lakers should be a little bit worried, but you can just throw LeBron on Kyrie or James Harden. Yeah. It's LeBron will guard one of them. It doesn't matter.
And then it's going to be AD on KD.
Yeah, it'll be AD on KD of some sort. Try to rough him up. So
I'd really like to see that actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of intriguing options. Yeah. I said it preseason. I think Lakers Nets would be great for basketball. I'm hoping it doesn't happen every year.